Now we are joined by Carlos Leitão. He's the former Quebec finance minister. He was also still the acting finance minister of Quebec late last year when SNC learned of the prosecution's decision not to proceed with remediation. He joins us now from Montreal. Mr. Leitão, welcome back to BNN Bloomberg. Thanks very much for joining us. First of all, what was your experience in dealing with SNC?
Listen, SNC is a very large, important, strategic firm in the Canadian economy. And the one thing that I would point out is that SNC today, or in 2018, 2017, is a very different company from SNC in 2008, 9, 10. So to try and maintain that the SNC is still the same company, it's just wrong. It's a very different company.
I'm not sure that that's the central issue here. I think a lot of people are focusing on what was happening behind the scenes and how far the company may have been going in trying to get that message across in Ottawa, to the point where clearly it made the former Attorney General quite uncomfortable.
Well, again, I'm not going to comment very much on the political angle to this story, but the impression I have is that the former Attorney General felt a little uncomfortable with her own colleagues. I don't think the company itself was lobbying her. That's the impression that I have.
But the politics and the economics of it are getting intermingled, because if you believe the reporting and the testimony was about the economic significance to the Quebec area. What were your considerations as the finance minister when you were thinking about that? Was there a real material concern that these jobs would disappear? Because the counter to that is that they are very high-skilled jobs, and those people could easily find, as engineers, could easily find jobs elsewhere, some in Quebec through WSP, for example. So take us through your view of the economic importance of SNC.
Well, actually, as I said at the start, SNC is a crucial strategic company. But in terms of employment, in fact, SNC employs more people outside Canada than in Canada, and then in Canada, more people in Ontario than in Quebec, for example. But SNC is important for the Canadian economy. It's one of the few truly global multinationals that we have that is based in Canada, in this case based in Montreal. And the importance of head offices, I think it has been proven many, many times that the head office of a global multinational can play a very important role in the economic fabric of a metropolitan area. So for that reason, SNC is very important. Now, as I said, SNC has changed over the past few years, and today there are a lot more people, for example, that work in SNC in the United Kingdom than in Canada. And in fact, top management, quite a number of them come from the UK. So the real risk here is that SNC at some point will change its head office from Montreal to the UK, to London. That's a real risk. And I think that will be a real loss for the Canadian economy if indeed that were to happen.
And you think the government's handling of this situation could be the deciding factor?
Well, the issue that concerns SNC is the DPA, the deferred prosecution arrangement. So SNC is not asking for a free pass. They're simply asking for this provision that exists in our system. And by the way, in the UK, in the US, in the European Union, it also exists something similar. They're simply asking, well, why can't this be considered? Because that would allow then the company to continue to operate in Canada and continue to participate in public procurement contracts by the federal government.
Right.
Now, if the federal government decides that for some reason that's not possible, fine. But then what we would like, for example, in Quebec, what we would like to know is why. Why is it? Why didn't the former Attorney General consider SNC eligible for such an agreement?
What's your thought on that?
I don't know.
Yeah.
I would like to know, because is there something that we don't know that makes it so, or not? And so what is the real reason? So I think it's very important to move forward. It's very important to know that. And in fact, I think in the coming days, tomorrow, Mr. Butts will be testifying, and there'll be other people testifying. So we've heard one side of the story. I mean, there will be other aspects of that story coming out.
Just to be clear here, so what do you think personally is the best outcome here? Is it to have a settlement, to have a deal as opposed to a criminal trial?
Yes, I think that will be the, if indeed that's possible, if there's something that we are not aware of, but from what we can see, in the public space, I come to the conclusion that an agreement will be possible. And by the way, it's not a free pass; it's just a deferred prosecution agreement. So, supervised by a judge, and then the company has to fulfill a number of conditions and whatnot. So, if the company is eligible to such a deal, then why isn't such a deal forthcoming?
So do you support the approach that the government has taken on this file? Do you continue to support the federal government?
Absolutely. I think that the federal government has tried to move this file forward. Ultimately, it's up to the Attorney General to make that decision. And the previous Attorney General decided that that was not going to be the case. But I think it's in the interest of the Canadian economy that the solution is found for SNC. Again, because SNC today is not the same company as it was 10 years ago.
Premier Legault has been on the record talking about another risk, the idea of, when we're talking about head offices, a possible hostile takeover. Yes. I would love to get your take on whether you think that is a realistic possibility with SNC.
It's a possibility.
I should clarify hostile foreign takeover.
I know, yeah. It is it's something that is within the realm of the possibility. I have no information if that's going to happen or not. But if one looks at the severe correction in the stock value of SNC over the past couple of months, then the company becomes vulnerable to a takeover because of the sharp drop in its share price. And since it does not have one controlling shareholder, then such a scenario becomes possible. I don't know if it's going to happen or not, but and then the share price has taken a big beating, in part, not entirely, but in part because of the uncertainty about its relationship with the Canadian federal government.
Carlos, I'm trying to put two things together because on one hand, you've mentioned that SNC is not what it was, a decade ago. It has retrenched from the Canadian economy and has pulled back quite significantly from what it used to be. But on the other hand, you're arguing for this economic imperative that the current state of it, which is a shadow of what it was before, it's so important to maintain.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. Sorry. Maybe there's a confusion. What I meant when I said that SNC is not the same as it was 10 years ago, it's not the same in terms of its governance. It's not the same in terms of its management. The entire management team is new. The board of directors is new. So the company has changed a lot from its bad ways of the past. The individuals that led to that reprehensible behavior have already been sanctioned or are going to be sanctioned. We just think that the company has reformed its ways, is under new management. In fact, has expanded because it has purchased other companies in the UK particularly. So the company is bigger now than what it was then. And it has completely changed its governance, its structure, its top management. Its divisions have been closed down. So it's in that sense that I say the company is very different today than it was 10 years ago.
In her resignation, Jane Philpott mentioned that she had serious concerns of how the federal government dealt with the SNC issue and said that that had been augmented by the views expressed by her constituents in Ontario, the Markham-Stouffville area. I'm curious, what have you been hearing from your constituents?
Well, in the Montreal area, and I represent one of the ridings in the Montreal area, there is, very broad-based support for the approach of the current federal government to try and obtain an arrangement that would allow SNC to continue to operate. So in that respect, no one is asking for a free pass. People understand that the DPA is not a free pass. The company will have to fulfill a number of tough conditions and pay probably some significant fines. But given the size, the importance, and the strategic relevance of the company, it will be appropriate to allow it to have access to that process that was put in place precisely to do that. And it exists in the UK, it exists in the United States, It exists in the European Union. So we just don't understand why it cannot be used in Canada.